Only a handful of days, you guys, until everyone in the world pays attention to what is happening in the state of Iowa.
And then everyone's going to leave.
And then we're all by ourselves once again. But we're going to introduce you to a man who's very familiar with this process.
Yes, indeed.
Governor Mike Huckabee.
Most definitely Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee joining us in studio with us. First of all, thank you for taking the time
My pleasure.
with us because
Great
you
to be
are
with you.
everywhere, it seems like.
Oh, boy, tell me about it. I feel like that Johnny Cash song, I've Been Everywhere, Man.
That could be your theme.
In fact, this morning we have a funny little video. It's a takeoff on Adele's song Hello. And I promise it's worth a watch. You can go to MikeHuckabee.com or my Facebook page this morning, and it's all the towns in Iowa. So it's Iowa-centric, and if people live in Iowa, they're going to love this because it talks about all the towns and what we've seen and who we've met, and we're having a little fun with that.
Because that's very important to you, is making sure you get to every county in this state.
You know, Jackie, we went to every one of the 99 counties. We did the full Grassley.
That's you got the lingo down too.
Yeah.
Good.
And we did town halls. We didn't just drive through and take a photo at the courthouse and drive on.
Right.
But here's my concern. I think that the way to win Iowa is the old-fashioned way, going out there and meeting voters one-on-one, talking to them, answering their questions. Here's my fear. If this process changes, and this becomes the year in which people can just raise a bunch of money in Manhattan from the same Wall Street donors, from the same billionaires, and buy a bunch of radio and TV and newspaper space and make a few appearances, but not go out and do the hard work of meeting farmers and housewives and truck drivers and unemployed welders, then the country loses. It's not Iowa, it's the country. Because then a president can go to Hollywood, New York, and a few places, raise big bucks from the big donors, and never talk to the people who can't pay their medical bills this year. I worry about that because I don't think that they'll understand the problems that real Americans are facing every day.
And that's what it's become since Citizens United is now you have a few people buying elections and buying politicians, and that's what it is now.
It's frustrating, and I would say to people, Jason, follow the money. If you look at a candidate and most of the money, or a big chunk of it, comes from the same hedge fund people, the Goldman Sachs and Citibank and Bank of America and all the big guys, I promise you, I don't care what their speeches are, and I don't care what their ads say, I promise you that when they get elected, they will do what those donors want them to do. And that's why people don't see a whole lot of difference whether Democrats or Republicans get elected. It's the same old slop, and they say, how come it doesn't change? Because the donors are controlling the strings of the politicians. And it's extremely frustrating to me as somebody who grew up basically from poverty up through the middle class, became involved in politics because I felt like that there's such a disconnect between the people who are governed and the people who are doing the governing. And then you see it, and it's all about just the same little circle of money, and we've got to change that. We have to.
Speaking of change, this is not your first rodeo. You've been here before.
I've been bucked off many a horse. Indeed. Yes, indeed.
So how is this year different than the ones in the past?
Lou, it's different because people are in a seething rage this year. There's an anger that it's
that's
more intense
very
than I've ever
accurate.
seen.
I'm glad you said that because that's an underlying tone, isn't it?
It is. Every election there's a certain level of dissatisfaction and people are wanting to see change, and that's always the big thing. But this time, people are just enraged that the government is so disconnected from them. They're tired of the dysfunction. Republicans, for example, watched in horror as the Republican Congress voted for a budget bill in December that basically gave the Democrats everything they wanted: Planned Parenthood funding, Syrian refugee relocation, funding of Obamacare, funding of illegal immigration. Everything they hated, the Republicans said, okay, we'll give it to you. And the Republicans got a lump of coal in their stocking for Christmas. And that is just that frustration that people truly feel.
The party has changed so much, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, just learning about politics and all of this stuff, it was Ronald Reagan, and there were real actual conservatives in Washington, and now the Republicans spend just as much as the Democrats do. The Republicans don't have the same values they did back then. It's all different now.
It's money. I keep going back to this, but it's about who drives the money. It's about who's going to make the money. Why do we have illegal immigration? Because there's an economic advantage to hiring an illegal. If I pay you $12 an hour as an American, and I hire Jackie at $8 an hour, and she's illegal, not that she is, but if I did, she would actually have more money in her pocket at $8 an hour than you would, because we take so much out of yours. But she's not going to tell anybody, even though we're exploiting her labor. But as an employer, I've saved $4 an hour on the front end. I've also saved the 7.5% employer payroll tax that I don't have to pay her. So people wonder, how come Republicans nor Democrats ever deal with this issue? I'll tell you why. Because too many people are making too much money, and they tell the politicians, don't touch this or we'll give to your opponent. And that's why I say that when Americans are frustrated and they say, how come these guys do this? Why don't they listen to us? It's because the money keeps flowing. And I don't know how to fix it, other than people have to decide that they look at the candidates, see where their funding comes from, and if their funding comes from these same sources, they say, I'm not going to vote for you. And that's the only thing that I know that will fix this.
Well, Governor, you've obviously done the groundwork across our great state. We're days away from the caucus. What do we need to do, or what do you need to do to get your numbers where they need to be so you can continue on with your campaign? Well,
the key for us is recognizing that some estimates are that up to 44% of the Iowa voters have not made up their mind, and some that say that they have committed to a candidate are willing to change. Iowa has a long history of every 4 years on the caucus, there is a big surprise. Everybody has it all figured out. I love it when these guys on the East Coast sitting in their nice studios, thousands of miles from Iowa, will say, here's what the Iowa people are going to do. And the people of Iowa surprise them every time and do what they want to do. I hope they come through again. I hope they vote for me. 8 years ago, I got more votes than anyone in the history of the Iowa caucuses. I'm the same person today that I was then. You're not going to find me flopping around all over the stage with different positions on everything that is important to people. If they voted for me then, I think they, hopefully, I'm praying that over the weekend they'll say, I've heard all the back and the forth and all the craziness. Let's go with who we know. Let's go with a guy that has been consistent, not just for 4 years, 8 years, but for his entire life.
And you want to know something that is very possible, too. And that's the greatest thing of all, especially with the Iowa caucus.
All right. Yeah, we need to learn more about those when we come back.
We're going to be right back. And yes, we do have our sheet of questions for Mike Huckabee, too, when we come back to Great Day Live in Des Moines. Welcome back to Great Day Live in Des Moines. By the way, the only program in Des Moines right now that is live is the one you are watching right now, the one that has Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee.
No pressure, Governor.
No pressure at all.
None whatsoever. Well, thanks for being here once
Great
again.
to be back.
Conversations during the commercials have been nonstop with us. You're so easy to talk to.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm going to tell my wife that, so she'll believe it as well.
I've always believed that, and I've always loved listening to you. I've wished you would join the other side of the party sometimes. And because of that, I know. And because of that, I was talking to you about a lot of things we were talking about last segment during break. You seem to say a lot of things that I hear from Bernie Sanders, and so was wondering how you differentiate yourself from the Democratic candidate.
Well, Bernie and I would agree on that. The problem is that the political system has been completely hijacked by an extremely small group of the wealthiest people in the country. On that we agree. We disagree on the solution. His is, let's raise taxes, let's punish the people who are wealthy. Look, punishing wealthy people does not help poor people. In fact, it will hurt them even more, because if you take away the ability of, let's say, a person who owns a major business, whether it's Apple Computers or whoever, and they don't have money, then they can't hire. What we need to do is to create a system that works for the worker. The reason I support the fair tax, which is a tax on consumption rather than a tax on income, is because the current tax system punishes people the harder they work. If they work harder, they get punished by a graduated income tax that actually pushes them back down. It also forces many of the people who have wealth to move their wealth offshore. That's why there's $31 trillion of capital offshore that would come back to the U.S. But here's what has hurt America most: crony capitalism, where people are able to manipulate the political system so they can become either winners or losers in the tax system. The manipulation of the tax code is the single greatest reason that so much money goes to politics. It's the reason we have 77,000 pages of a tax code. The fair tax eliminates the tax code, the IRS, and it makes it so that no matter who you are, you go buy something, you pay tax when you buy it, and you're done with it. There's nothing hidden. It's all transparent. And it's a dramatically powerful change to the economy. And the people it helps the most are the people in the bottom third of the economy.
That sounds fairly simple. If it was that simple, why hasn't it been implemented?
Simple. I'll tell you why. Because Congress loses power. The power of Congress to manipulate contributions out of donors is to say, if you help me in my campaign, I will make sure you get that tax break your business needs for depreciation, or that tax break so that you can build with a subsidy and with a rail spur to your facility. When the contributions stop, politicians don't have the power. When politicians get the contributions, they have power. They have power to manipulate the tax code. It's a vicious cycle. And it's really, you said it's simple. It is simple. But it requires some courage. And frankly, the fair tax will never happen unless there's a president who believes in it, can explain it, can sell it, and most importantly, who is not a wholly owned subsidiary of the big investment firms, bankers, and the billionaires who, quite frankly, would rather just go ahead and play the political game because it's what they know. They would do better under the fair tax, but it's not what they know, and they're so used to the game, why would they change it?
Obamacare, for it to work, assuming it ever could, you would have to have participation from almost everybody, the people who are cheap to insure and the people who are expensive to insure. It's not happening. People aren't hopping on board. So I was reading your website this morning. What do we have to do to fix this situation? There's certainly, to me, as a Christian, a benefit to helping people who need help and who can't afford health care. But how do we do it?
You know, one of the things that I believe a lot of Christians, because I'm a person of faith and I'm a believer, but there's a problem in that if all the Christians would give a dime out of their dollar, as the Scripture tells us to, then we wouldn't be giving the government 50 cents of every dollar to do the things that the church should be doing, could be doing, and doing much better. Poverty programs have failed because we've really funded the industry of poverty more than we've helped people at the bottom get to the next rung. The poverty programs are designed to keep people in poverty, not to get them out. And unless you create a system that really takes care and ministers to the heart of people, they'll never be able to get out of the hole. I'll give you a quick example. A single mom who has kids, if she does not go to work, she is able to access Medicaid, food stamps, WIC, Section 8 housing, and a host of other benefits. If she goes to work, she hits an arbitrary threshold at which she loses all those benefits. So she is better off, and her kids are, if she stays under the threshold, keeps the benefits, her kids have a much better life. We punish her for going to work. What we should do is have a simple system. We did this in my home state of Arkansas in welfare reform. You don't lose all your benefits. If you go to work and you make an extra $100, you don't lose thousands of dollars worth of benefits. You come out ahead, however it always works, so that you're never slipping behind. Then you have an incentive to keep moving up. You have an incentive to work. Our programs are designed to keep people in the hole. And let me assure you, as a person who grew up poor, nobody who's poor wants to be poor.
Right.
That's nonsense. When I hear people say, well, poor people are poor because they want to be, that shows an ignorance. Poor people are poor because they don't know how to get out of the hole. And government has not helped them. And that's why I say churches. If churches were bigger, government could be smaller. And when conservatives say, I want smaller government, great. Be more generous in your charitable giving. Go to a church that helps poor people. Go to a church that takes care of widows. And if you do that, then government can get smaller when truly people's hearts and their charities get bigger.
There you go. Mike Huckabee again, 5 days to go before the caucus here in the state of Iowa. The entire world will be watching us. And a lot of people want to know the real hard-hitting questions. They want to know the real answers to some questions that are on everyone's mind. You ready for the questions?
Let's see what you got.
All right, here we go.
Here we go.
Probably haven't
I may regret this.
So these are the ones that a lot of people will remember. For example, what is your favorite color?
Blue.
That didn't take any time whatsoever. Okay, so blue.
Any
Rick
specific
Santorum
reason?
said the same thing.
Yeah.
So you agree on color.
Rick's a good friend, by the way, good man.
Okay.
Well, that's usually power colors, blue and red, for political reasons, right?
I guess so. I don't know. I just always like blue.
Just always like blue. Okay.
All right, your favorite meal?
Ribeye steak.
Okay.
Good answer.
Easy.
Good.
I'm a carnivore.
Okay.
I'm in Iowa, for God's sake. You think I'm going to say I'm a vegetarian?
Is that your Iowa answer?
Say I'm a vegan. I'm in Iowa. I don't think so.
All right, favorite movie? I'm sure you've been asked this before.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Casablanca or Godfather Part 2.
2?
Yeah. 2 was
So you're
better than 1.
probably
That's what my
sad
dad
about-
says, too.
They're both wonderful.
So you're
but
probably
2's
sad about the actor that just passed away.
Yeah,
Abe Vigoda.
yeah. Tessio in Godfather 1.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Got choked to death in the front seat of the car.
Hard way to go.
I know the whole movie.
All right, are you a sports person?
Razorback sports, yeah,
Okay,
college.
that would be the next one. What's your
and
favorite
Dallas
team?
Cowboys
Okay.
in the NFL, which this year hasn't amounted to much. But
No.
okay.
No.
All right, do you have a pet?
Yes, I have 2 dogs, a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel and a Shih Tzu. We had a lab. He died after 15 years, so we are very dog people.
That would be the next one. Are you
Yep.
dog or cat person?
Dog, all the way.
Coke or Pepsi?
Diet Pepsi until they recently changed the formula, and now I don't drink it anymore, and now I'm drinking Diet Snapple.
Okay.
Pepsi ruined the after,
So more of a Dr.
after
Pepper Snapple
40
type guy.
years
Okay.
of drinking
All right,
Diet Pepsi,
that's the
they
first
have
time we've
ruined
ever
it.
had that answer before. Okay.
Yep.
And we know you're a musician.
Yep.
First of all, how'd the gig go Monday?
Oh, we had a great time. Josh Turner came in. We had a blast. He is such a great guy.
All right, your favorite type of music?
Oh, that's hard because I like all genres. My iPhone is the entire spectrum, but probably blues or classic rock.
Okay, favorite band then?
Beatles.
Beatles?
Yeah.
Okay.
They
And-
were the major influence that got me interested in music when I was 8 years old and watched them on it.
You mentioned classic rock, so we have to ask the next question. David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar?
Neither. We're talking 80s band. That's not classic rock. Classic rock is 60s, man. Come on. That's not classic. Classic rock, that we're talking the Stones, the Who, Led Zeppelin. That's classic rock. And on there, it would be the Stones.
This guy, okay, we'll put Mick Jagger down. That'd be
Yeah.
the answer.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Mike Huckabee, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Governor.
For
Had a great
Thank you
time.
very
Thank you,
much.
Lou.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you.